put a lot of work into it. Ed Sheeran is in Game of Thrones. It makes perfect sense. Game of Thrones is back. Ed Sheeran's in it. I think he might be a secret Targaryen. Have you watched Game of Thrones yet? No. What is your opinion of Game of Thrones right now?
Welcome to Shows What You Know, your television podcast where sometimes we're fighting the fourth dimension to get everything to work in time, sometimes we're trying to get the show out live, and sometimes we manage it just perfectly, and sometimes we're there in the nick of time. It's all very bewildering how it all turns out in the end. Somehow it all works. My name is Jacob Burrows.
And I am Jim Scampoli. You don't understand the hoops that we just jumped through to make that happen, but we did it, much like Jon Snow, much like Cersei Lannister, much like Tyrion Lannister, Daenerys Targaryen, Davos Fleabottom, or whatever his name is. Gendry. All these survivors, that's us. The Game of Thrones podcast, your place, Shows What You Know, the Game of Thrones podcast where we're breaking it down.
Oh yes, we're here to talk about episodes 5 and 6 of season 7 of Game of Thrones. It's been a roller coaster so far. I think emotions are high all around. Sometimes we get just high off the special effects, but that's another story. So I think we should start with just general impressions and such of episode 5 and 6. I'm gonna throw it to you first of all, because first 2 episodes of the season we were like, we don't know. Then another 2 episodes we were like, this is amazing. Now we're here. Almost finished. It's almost over. Where are you at, Jim Scampoli?
I'm still digging it. I am still on board. I've noticed that there's been a flip-flop. If you listen to the first, our discussion of the first 2 episodes, I was pretty down. I even had the tweet that I mentioned where I said Game of Thrones kind of sucks now. And I feel like everyone else is now like Game of Thrones kind of sucks now. But I'm glad I was there because I feel like I just got myself in proper Game of Thrones mode. Because a lot of people are saying stuff I was saying because they think like this stuff's supposed to happen on regular TV shows, but not Game of Thrones. And I still think Game of Thrones is head and shoulders above the most, maybe not the rest, but the most. But I think I kind of settled myself in where like this is a little different Game of Thrones. Things are going to come fast and loose and just strap in and go along for the ride.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of view to have because definitely, as you said, it's feeling like a TV show, which is not crazy because it's a TV show. But yeah, more away from where we were before, which is kind of a shame. I can't blame people, but I really think you were ahead of the game saying that early on so that you could really get into these episodes. I have to admit, I've been having some doubts at this point. I'm like, okay, like I can suspend my disbelief to a certain point, but sometimes there's some issues. That said, there was some amazing stuff in these 2 episodes, and we're not really going to have a spoiler-free section. We're just going to blast through them both, and if you're joining us live in the chat, please do let us know your opinions. And if you're listening at home and you've just finished watching maybe the season finale or something or other, you can also send your opinions to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com to participate in the discussion. With that said, should we just go ahead and start with episode 5?
Well, I just want to say one other thing as far as the attitude around Game of Thrones. And I already made this comparison, but I still feel like it's a decent comparison. It's things, since the story's winding down, things have to start falling into place. Meaning, like, we can't just kill off main characters just because, like, for the shock factor. Not that Game of Thrones did it for the shock factor, but there's not anything else there if they kill, like, because some people are complaining about characters not dying. I kind of did the same thing with the Dragon War or the food truck battle of the field.
Battle. Yeah, I think that's the name.
Because it's like, if they kill off Jon Snow or something, then what is the rest of the show, you know? So things have to start falling into place. It's very similar to the Breaking Bad finale. People thought there was going to be some crazy twist at the end. And even though it was very well executed, a lot of people were unhappy because it's not so much that they fully predicted it, but it's things that you had an idea were going to happen happened. And I think you're going to have to strap in for Game of Thrones with that. Of course, there's definitely going to be some surprises, but they're not just going to behead Daenerys in, this episode, because then what have we been doing for the last 7 years of our lives?
True, but what about like the Hound or the guy with the flaming sword? Or I agree. It's also earlier on they could kill off characters and it could like mean a lot because they were central characters. We spent a lot of time with them, but we also had a hell of a lot more characters going around. So I see where you're coming from. And also interesting to mention Breaking Bad, because I was thinking earlier, what TV shows have there been where the finale is just really like, mwah? Like, there's a lot of TV shows that end and you're not like in love with it. Breaking Bad, one of my favorites. Some people don't like it, of course, but it's kind of a lot of pressure. I don't want to make any excuses for the writing or anything, but there's a lot of things that have to come together, and the more people that are watching, the more people are going to be dissatisfied about certain parts of it. That said, there's a lot of plot holes. I guess we should get into it.
Well, yeah, because don't get me wrong, there's definitely some things. I'm not saying don't have any complaints.
Sure.
Because there are definitely some things left wanting. And we pointed it out. I could see from the first 2 episodes that without the books as like a safety net or what have you, the writing's definitely off a little bit. Yeah. And now you do start to wonder, wait, are like Weiss and Benioff really great? Or do they just have great stuff to pull from?
Mm-hmm. And I really think it's been a combination. I think they've been at their best when they've had great stuff to pull from, and then now it's kind of they kind of have to make stuff up as they go, and I think they're leaning more towards, well, we have this awesome thing in mind, let's get to that, rather than, say what you will for George R.R. Martin, but he will spend 10 years in a plot that he doesn't want to be in just because he wants it to make sense. He will write whole books about stuff that he doesn't care about, and the readers don't care about, just to make it all add up. That's kind of his the negative side of his style. So D&D certainly have their opposite approach. I think they had the best balance when they had both of them. Now we're kind of here. So I'm still digging it too. It's just these 2 episodes, again, there was stuff going on mostly about this whole plan that you referred to as like an Ocean's 11 type situation, something like that, assembling a ragtag group to go do an adventure. It feels about as un-Game of Thrones as anything that's happened, and it kind of seems to follow different rules than we've gotten used to over seasons and seasons. So they should also be aware of what they've written before and hopefully like integrate it in a way where it still feels like the same world and not drastically different. I'd say they're still balancing on that, and it kind of goes either way. Sometimes it's great.
Okay, yeah, we'll get there. So episode 5, I did pay attention to the intro, and Eastwatch is in the intro, boys.
Well done, Jim. That's the first time, right?
That's the first time. I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we see Eastwatch. We only see it for it feels like a moment in the actual show, but yeah, when we actually start out, last week we asked the question if Jaime Lannister is still alive. That's answered in a few seconds as Bronn pulls him out in his full plate mail somehow onto the bank there.
Well, and this was such a cop-out, not the fact that he lived or got out of the water, but the fact that nobody noticed or that they got that far away.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like we later saw with Jon Snow getting out of the water. Like, it was so late after that all the people had stopped, like all the zombies had already left, but he was still like kind of just swimming, I guess. Same with, like, Tyrion did see them go into the water. He saw the whole attack, but he didn't, like, investigate. And then later they kind of hang out in King's Landing. They don't mention how he nearly got roasted, I think. But yeah, it's a scene. Yeah. Some people have described it as really terrible. I didn't mind it too much, honestly. What did you think?
I just think it's solidified, like, what we were discussing about this battle in the last episode is that, it was great. It was, thrilling, but there was really nothing at stake because you know, if they just had, and I get like for dramatic reasons they didn't, they had those opportunities where Bronn was even saying like, Jaime, get out of here. Jaime, get out of here. And it's like, if something big isn't going to happen with Jaime Lannister, then just have him get out of there. Because I don't buy that he just falls in the water and then comes up, 400 yards away, and he's like, that was some good. That was some good swimming. And either way, even if they were that far away, I still feel like they would have got them. Like, hey, remember that guy was going to kill me? But again, these are. I mean, I guess I wouldn't really call it a nitpick because you're not really like picking at a small thing, but it's some of the things that do make it a little bit more shaky as we're coming towards the finish line here at Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, the whole gritty realism that was part of the appeal and kind of still is, it kind of takes a punch when you have people like, Bronn, best dude, dodging fire, shooting dragons, diving in and digging him up. They even escaped from that whole army that was just there and executing people, I guess. And like that's almost all the characters are just like, wow, best dude, impossible to kill. Oh, that guy's not a main character? Oh, he can die. That's fine. It's a bit Star Trek, bit red shirt stuff going on with that. It feels like we kind of lose some of the whole feeling of anyone can die. Or anyone can be injured and anything can happen. It feels like more within the strict format that they're going for. But anyway, yes, he's back. He's alive.
Yes, and then we get to see Daenerys roast up the Tarleys. And this is kind of played as this like, oh my god. But I don't know. I guess I kind of understood why she would do it because it just reminded me a little bit of like Ned Stark in the first episode where it's like, you call out a punishment, you got to follow through. So, but I mean, Tyrion, and I feel like the way they wanted this to play out is you're supposed to be kind of like, oh no, why did she do that? She's the Mad King. But to me, I just was like, yeah, of course, that's what you do. They're not going to bend the knee. And they're going to like show up in front of their soldiers. That's giving their soldiers a little piece of hope. Nope. Burn them up. They all bend the knee. There you go. Call it a day. Let's go home.
I agree. I feel like they've been hammering a bit on this thing that Daenerys wants to make a whole new world, a place where something and so on. And I guess they show that because she freed the slaves, but it's almost as if they've taken that to mean, oh, we can't, kill our enemies with these dragons. That would be horrible. And I guess in a way, I can see how it would be like, hey, maybe we can turn them around. Maybe we can be sneaky and Littlefingery about them. But I still don't see it as like, oh my gosh, she did something terrible. Definitely not. The only reason I would say if I was there, if I was Tyrion, I'd maybe try to do the same thing because, hey, remember the Mad King? He sure liked burning people alive a lot. Your dad, your old pops, coin still in the air. Half the time you end up crazy. Ha ha ha. Maybe burn as few people as you can. Could we maybe behead them? Something like that. But still, it doesn't feel like a big deal to me.
Yeah, that's the chat room said that at the same time as you were talking. The only wrong is the burning people. Beheading them's not an issue. I guess it's just because of the history of burning people. That's what makes it the controversial choice.
I honestly feel like if it was regular fire and they were kind of standing there with old medieval flint, like, come on, let's get you burned up. Ha ha ha. It's different. This is literally like the most fast way you can kill someone, I feel, with dragon fire. It'll destroy them in 3 or 4 seconds. So I mean, it's horrible, but it's not as bad as actually torturing someone to death. She didn't even have them eat them. I thought for sure, like, hey, fresh meat for my dragons. That would have been more disturbing, but didn't go that way either.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get it. It's like the history. It's what it says and what it shows about the type of leader you are, I suppose. But hey,
shows what you know.
Of course.
Yeah.
Then I feel like we get some time with Cersei where, she's just saying she'd rather fight and die than surrender and die or something or other.
Well, honestly, yeah, that's when Jaime comes back, right? And they have kind of an argument about it. I kind of felt on Cersei's side for like the first time in a long time because it's kind of too late, Jaime. like, face it, what is it you're asking me to do, Jamie? At this point, we already like had our incest babies and blew up everyone. We tried to assassinate this girl. This girl's parents and relatives were bashed to death by us. And now you want us to do what exactly? Just lie down and expose our bellies to the dragons? Did you not see the Tarleys?
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I don't like Cersei at all, but yeah, because Jamie basically comes back, he's like, I've seen these dragons, we're fucked, there's nothing we could do, it's over, let's just run away, or let's surrender, and then she's like, nah, I ain't having that shit. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it made sense because, I mean, I guess, what is the thought? That they would surrender and that Daenerys would be like, all right, well, you know, hey, you're only Cersei and Jaime Lannister. I guess I'll keep you around. Maybe you could be a maester.
I mean, at this point, there's no one around who's on their sides, right? I mean, the Tarleys were the only ones they could convince, and they promptly got barbecued. What are they going to do? I mean, they've kind of been doing it very impressively in this war. Partially, it feels like, because the whole plot situation needs them to be more of a threat. But yeah, what are they going to do? Surrender? Hey, 7 kingdoms, split them down the middle. You can have the north. I have a feeling the property value is about to go down, so you take the north and some of these other kingdoms. I don't think that would work for either of them.
Then we do get a scene where Jon Snow has a connection with the dragon, which to me should be screaming like, I'm your relative. I'm related to you. Don't you understand? Stop falling in love with me. Let's stop falling in love with each other.
Well, on that note, when I first met my girlfriend's dog, the dog got so excited that she peed all over the floor. Now, this is a house-trained dog, but when she was younger, she used to pee on the floor when someone new and exciting came around, but that hadn't happened for like a year. And then I came, and the dog was like, oh my God, and peed on the floor. And I hope that doesn't mean we're related.
Well, I mean, your dog and, like, dragons only bowing down to, what, people with dragon fire or whatever the hell they call it on the show. I think it's a little different.
Oh, yeah.
But I get what you're saying. Like, I think that's what you're saying is how she read it, is like, it's like, it's kind of like a cliche thing of like, you know, if my cat likes him, then he's a good one. He's a winner. So, I mean, you lucked out. And then I guess Jon Snow here is lucking out with this dragon. That's all like, hey, you're cool.
Well, we'll see. The DNA tests haven't come back yet, so who knows? But, yeah. And that's also, like, it felt like that was building to something. I'm sure it's building to something in the last episode, but it kind of felt like that could have come more into play in the next episode for me. You know, when the dragons were showing up.
Yeah,
like, maybe it would have added up better if a dragon saved Jon Snow rather than his uncle from seasons ago.
Well, the thing is, they keep trying to have these moments where Jon and Daenerys will stare at each other. It's the classic romantic comedy moment where something's about to happen, then someone's like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing?" And this was the moment, I think, what Jorah shows up, like, to kind of break up the moment.
Jorah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. He shows up again and ruins the mood. And, I mean, basically, what happens immediately after that? Let me see. They start making their plans, right?
Well, I think Jorah shows up, and then, like, he starts making his eyes at Daenerys, like, as they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. Next in my notes is basically we start to see, we get Bran's glimpse through the three-eyed raven as he sees the army of the dead. Oh, yeah. So I think shortly after they must get the raven, because, you know, like, the common complaint is everything's very fast now. So Bran sees it, sends a raven, they get it, like, immediately, and then even Jon's kind of like barely, like, surprised that Bran's back, isn't he? I mean, I guess maybe as a comment, he does have some sort of side comment about him being back, but it's mostly like he's seen the army of the dead.
Yeah. and he's I think he's like, oh, I thought he was dead, and then it's like, all right, you don't sound too happy, and then it's like all about the zombies again, back to the zombie business. Who does Bran our mail, like, does he also send it to the Citadel, the same thing?
Well, yes, because we also get that scene where the Maesters are all talking about it, and Sam tries to convince them, and I don't know, like, they know it's the same. It's the same argument I have when like Daenerys doesn't believe in it, and it's like, you have 3 dragons. Shouldn't you have a little bit more open mind to things that are happening? And the Maesters are supposed to be like what, these well-educated, like knowledgeable people, especially with history and all that. Mm-hmm. And now they hear about the Army of the Dead, and they're like, "Ha ha! This is just a trick by the lady with the dragons." Which frustrates Sam Tarly, as it would. And then, but they do have that little, they drop that little knowledge of like, isn't that the dude whose brother and dad got killed by dragons? Like, yeah, I haven't told him that yet.
Yeah, which is fun. I mean, he is part of the Night's Watch, so I guess he doesn't inherit. And also, I mean, that land is all up in flames and in a war anyway, so it's not like it's a big deal. But hey, remember that big house he was at a few seasons ago? No one's the lord of that house anymore. So, you know, he could go there and with Gilly and live happily ever after if he wanted to, with all those books he stole. Yeah, I mean, I do like Jim Benson, right? Is that his name?
Great big bushy beard.
Exactly, yeah.
I can't think of his name right now. But yeah, that actor. But
he does a good job of playing both sides. Or showing that like he's reasonable and saying the reasons for and against, but still it's obviously frustrating enough for Sam. Although the most central scene in this whole fucking bit is when they're reading that book. Gilly's reading the book.
I believe
annoying fucking scene of I strike that. That's not the most annoying part, because the annoying part comes later, and I'm going to tell you all about it. But this annoying part is like something that's been waited for decades, and it's revealed in this sitcom-y way, which is fine. I promise it's fine, but it's not going to have as much of a dramatic impact. It's just this. If you don't know what we're talking about, Gilly's reading this book, all this stuff like, what about this? And Sam's like, will you shut up, woman? I'm trying to be a maester or something. Meanwhile, of course, she reads the most central piece of evidence or whatever that we've been waiting for a long time, telling us that Rhaegar Targaryen did indeed set aside his lawful wife and marry Jon Snow's mother, Lyanna. These are not spoilers at this point. You should already know this. Lyanna Stark, who's Ned Stark's sister. They got married. That means he's a legitimate Targaryen prince, and he has a more rightful claim than Daenerys. As I think we've brought up, these claims don't matter. It's war. Whoever wins is the victor, as Robert Soul Rebellion showed. But still, this has been something that's been just brewing since book 1, and it kind of revealed in this offhand way. And the reason I don't like it is that it feels like a little wink to the audience rather than good storytelling. It's like they throw it in to make us aware that they're aware of us, and there's more of that stuff going on. So I wasn't crazy about it. What did you feel?
Yeah, no. I did just ask the question too on our previous discussion, because I was like, wouldn't it not even matter? Wouldn't he still just be Jon Snow because he's a bastard? But this does basically confirm that no, he is not a bastard. And I think it's a little of both. I mean, I'm completely with you that it's kind of a shit way to reveal that. But with the way things are, I don't know if it was just like they didn't know another way. Although, like, I was annoyed. I mean, they could have worked it in. They might as well have just worked it into the flashback, like their cheating flashback with Bran last season. Because even with that, they still had the whole, like, and his name is... like, like, not that it really matters what his name is, but at this point where we're in it, you're telling us the story. Don't be like, here, it's my son, and is his name. But yeah, it was such a, you're right, it was a wink and pretty sloppy and like kind of a joke, because it's like shrugged away by Sam being like, "Will you shut up? Let's go. Let's get out of here." And it was even like, it's even more annoying because we've spent all this time with Sam at the Citadel, and now he's like, "Fuck this. We're out of here. Let's go. Pack it up. Grab that bastard son of yours, and let's head out of here."
I mean, basically proving that he was just there to cure Jorah and deliver the information about the dragon glass at Dragonstone. Also, of course, I assume the books they gathered, they probably still have that information, and that might pop up later, letting us know that. But we also have Bran, fucking Miracle Bran, who knows everything that ever shall be or has been, so it's kind of irrelevant at this point. Also, Bran, the most useless... I mean, I know he sent a raven, but... I guess that is the limit of his power now, but isn't he supposed to be like an old god at this point? He's basically one of the old gods, more or less. He's absorbed all this knowledge. So maybe he, if no one else was intelligent enough to say it, maybe he could have sent a raven saying, "Hey, don't go north of the wall. It's full of fucking wights." I mean, I guess that maybe that's what he wrote, but apparently... like, this whole plot stupidity that strikes everyone in the next scene when they're deciding what to do. I don't know if it's exactly the next scene, but I want to talk about it. This whole council where they make up their mind that, hey, the only reasonable thing to do is to go and fetch a wight. That's the thing that messes up these whole episodes to me, because it doesn't make any sense as far as in my notes, I do believe I wrote something along the lines of, "This ploy of showing Cersei a White Walker, or White, is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard."
Yeah, no, this plan is really bad.
And what's the goal? It is to convince Cersei to not fight? Is that the reason? What's the reason?
Remember I said it as a joke, is that what if they have to team up with Cersei to fight the Winter, the White Walkers? Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do... This is to get her on their side, and then they'll all fight, Winter that's coming.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it just doesn't add up considering their relative strengths. I can see Daenerys saying, I don't want to fight Cersei right now because it's going to be a bother, but I don't think they have enough people to make a difference in the whole fight against the North. More importantly, Jon Snow is in this episode saying over and over, "We can't wait any longer. We have to do something right now." And the solution is to go north, fetch a White Walker, and then take it all the way south to King's Landing, show it to Cersei, who isn't going to agree anyway, or she will just because she wants to either delay it or because the plot wants them all to team up. That's the plan, and the potential loss is the king in the north is going to die, first of all. He doesn't seem to care about that. I guess Dany's point of view could be, hey, this king who won't kneel, he's going to go north of the wall and maybe die. No skin off my nose. But actually, that's not her perspective, because she's all flirting with him and all sad when he's in danger. So that's not her point of view. But still, they do send the king north to die. And... I mean, this is kind of jumping to the next episode, but everything goes to shit, and they all seem super surprised when it's full of fucking dead people.
Well, and honestly, yes, the way Jon Snow's been saying that there's no time, it honestly would seem like it'd be quicker to go in and decimate King's Landing and kill Cersei, and then be like, all right, now we got that settled, let's all go north and fucking fight the zombies. It really doesn't make sense that they're like, well, no, we can get her on our side by capturing a zombie, bringing it back to King's Landing and showing her. But that's also still not taking into account that we're talking about Cersei Lannister, and either way, whether you get her on your side or not, like, it's, you can't trust her. Even if you're fighting the dead, it doesn't matter. And I feel like they know that. Backing up real quick, because going in the chat, back to the Gilly reveal is... Marco in the chat saying it's not an official reveal, it's just for us, the viewer. And yeah, that's kind of what we're saying. So if they're going to have an official reveal, it feels like just save it for the official reveal, unless that to us is the official reveal and the characters will find out about it off screen. And they're also saying Bran's not 100% yet. He just received some fragments of the vision, not all knowing. I feel like the show is kind of pitching it otherwise. Maybe he's not all knowing, but I thought the whole reason why he's being a weirdo is that he has, like, he does see, he says, like, I see everything, and that's why he knows about Sansa and Arya, and he, you know, obviously he knows about Jon. I mean, we even had, I forget it was this episode or the episode before, where he had to be like, where's Jon? I have something to tell him. And everyone's like, ooh, we know what he's going to tell him. Yeah. So, I mean, you could be right, but I just feel like either way, the show's not very clear with that. And they're using Bran, they're playing it up as he is pretty much there. That's why he can't connect or give a shit. Like, that's why he kind of doesn't really give a shit about anything else.
Yeah. Jonathan says he's like Google, but he needs to make a search. I mean, I guess it's too much information to process in one brain, maybe. I was actually talking about this with Jonathan earlier. What the hell is, like, Bran's, like, what is he capable of? It seems like they made him capable of too much, and that means they can't use him because he's too powerful. Or maybe it's also true what Marco is saying, that he's not completely, like, connected to everything. Or I was also wondering if he can actually see the future or just everything in the past, because they kind of implied that he can see the future as well. But on the other hand, I'm not 100% on if they've shown that concretely. Either way, they made him into a character that's very difficult to use. He just has this piece of information that we've already known now for a long time, and they're kind of holding that reveal like they held the whole stab to the chest thing until the next episode, which also we now know wasn't for really any good reason except for a more dramatic bare-chested Jon Snow scene.
Yes. And, well, now that you mentioned it, too, as far as about Bran potentially seeing the future, now, is it pretty well known that the Night King kind of sees the future?
I don't think so. Or, I mean, I don't know, honestly. We don't know that much about the Night King, as far as I
that's
understand.
what I figured. But, I mean, I guess it could be argued that potentially, if Bran sees the future, that the Night King is similar, or at least the three-eyed Raven could kind of see what would be coming in the future. But
it is also true, sorry to cut you off, but it is also true that the Night King and Bran are sort of weirdly connected. I don't remember all the details, but they were kind of in each other's visions when, like, the three-eyed Raven died, and then he was all spacing out, and he was seeing the Night King, and, like, he was traveling into the past and seeing the creation of the Night King, and then he looked at him and, like, oh, he can see through time. So there's something like that, like what you were saying, going on, and it certainly seems likely considering the events of episode 6, which seemed like if there was an Ocean's 11 thing going on, the 11 we should have been paying attention to were the Night King and his 10 White Walkers. They were the one actually making a reasonable plan with a twist at the end, not the humans.
Yeah. Well, before we get to episode 6, so yeah, we mentioned their, like, ridiculous plan that they come up with, and everyone's kind of like, yeah, that's a good plan. Let's do it. So we finally get the return. Is it Gendry or Gendry?
I've heard both, but I think they say Gendry. Gendry. No, Gendry.
Gendry, yeah. So we finally get to, because Davos is just, they're like, what, you're not going to watch the boat? And he's like, well, I could watch the boat, or I'll just fuck off over here, or whatever. Some weird excuse that doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, no, there's somebody I can go get. There's someone I'm going to go get. Like, but he's just like, oh, whatever. And so, yeah, he's just been making swords, making weapons, bulking up.
My first reaction was like, I know those biceps. I know them. Oh, my God. I was so excited. And then Davos nearly ruined everything with the... I mean, I'm nitpicking now, but I'm kind of enjoying it. What I was...
the wink.
The worst line possibly in Game of Thrones history. I mean, there are some combatants out there that could give it a run for its money, but thought you might still be rowing is one of the stupidest things ever said in Game of Thrones.
This is exactly what I said, though. Davos is just there to be a goof. He's there to goof all the time and say, like, I guess, funny things or little winks to the audience. And, he did not fail us.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded it as a line in itself, except for... I guess like half a decade at this point. Half a decade of memes of Gendry in a boat and jokes about it. And then the show, when we finally get to see him, they decide to do this little wink, which isn't bad in itself, but just the fact that we've waited so long for a dramatic conclusion, and it keeps giving us these little like, you remember you were watching a TV show, right? You remember the memes? And instead of giving us just a satisfying scene, I mean, does that make any sense in universe for him to say that? Like, in the world, I thought you might still be rowing. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. So
no, it doesn't make, unless, yeah, it only makes sense is if Davos has been watching the show and also been wondering, like, yeah, where is Gendry? I need to go get him.
Yeah, exactly. So, but apart from that, I liked that scene. I liked seeing Gendry again. I liked that they set up that it was going to be like, hey, you know, don't tell Jon who you are, and then immediately tells him who he is. I did like that. That feels like one of those things that's more like a TV show, but in a good way, because we're kind of harping on all the negative stuff, but I don't feel that George R.R. Martin would ever have written that scene like that. But it's written this way, it works really well on the screen. And it kind of immediately gives us a connection between Gendry and Jon. Their parents were buddies, or, you know, supposed parents. And they immediately kind of like each other and have some chemistry. Gendry gets to be funny, he gets to be cool, he has this badass hammer that he clobbers two guards with too, which was kind of great. I mean, they should have done that from the start. Instead, goofball Davos is like, oh, you know, I take a fistful of this under your lip and your wife won't know what hit her, and then they just beat them to death anyway, because Tyrion shows up.
And it's so they can really hammer it home. Well, because Davos mentions his hammer like 2 times before that and 2 times after, because he's like, good with a hammer. He's got a hammer. And then to Jon, like, is he a good fighter? Not with a sword, but he's got a hammer. All right, yeah, we get it. We saw it happen. You've talked about it a bunch of times. We understand.
Yeah.
We also learned...
He promptly gives that hammer away in the next episode, too.
Yeah, he does.
Just a side note. He does never use it, so that's fine.
We also learned that Cersei's pregnant. Now, where are we at on this? Is this a real thing, or is this, you know, women doing their thing where they say they're pregnant?
That never actually entered my mind, Jim. Do you want to give us some insight on why you think that might be the case?
Well, no, I mean, I'm goofing. I'm being, you know, facetious, but I just don't trust Cersei Lannister is more anything. Or at the very least, if she is pregnant, it's some weird monster person.
Oh, well, that's a given. Yeah, it's definitely a weird monster person, but yeah, I think she's pregnant. Why not at this point? Just to give Jaime some extra sourness when he eventually murders her, or as we
I feel like
earlier.
that takes that theory away.
Yeah, that's probably true. Who's going to murder Cersei? Someone has to do it.
You'd have to make Jaime Lannister quite a monster to murder his pregnant sister lover.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he is quite a monster in our book, so could be the case. Probably not, though. And
how weak does it make the what is it? The men without flags?
The Brotherhood without banners?
The Brotherhood. Same thing.
The men without flags.
Unlike your auntie. What are you watching that show with the men without flags? But them and the Hound get captured off screen and they're just locked in jail. It feels like they're tough dudes. Why? Or did they see it in the fire that they should just go with these men?
I guess. I mean, they were heading north because the Hound saw a vision, I think. I think that was the reason. They had their motivation to go north. And then they were attacked by Wildlings. Did they also see that the Wildlings are now on their side? Or, like, what was their motivation? Because I don't see them wearing black cloaks, these Wildlings. So, but yeah, I guess they either surrendered or just were too drunk to fight. The Hound probably called them cunts, and that was about it. That's more or less what he does these days. Throw some rocks sometimes. A very useful guy. But yeah, they get locked up, as we find out when the team comes up there, and they have another scene where there's a lot of scenes where characters are like, well, you killed my uncle. Well, you did this and that, where we kind of reminding us, the audience, but also there's so many interconnections going on that we kind of forgot, like, that Gendry had anything to do with the Brotherhood without banners. He's definitely against them teaming up, but only because he sold them to a Red Witch. I mean, that's among the tamer crimes committed on this show.
Yeah, very true. So it does set our Ocean's 11 gang up where it's like, hey, good thing you're here because we're going to go capture a zombie. You want to capture a zombie? And they're like, man, what else am I going to do? I got a sword of fire. Who do I care?
Yes. So that's the plan. What else is... Samuel steals the books, and then, we have... At Winterfell, hooray! We have Arya...
Oh, yes.
Doing her little spy business on Littlefinger because she doesn't trust him, as she shouldn't. And he, of course, pulling the strings, doing the schemes. He knows the faceless girl is following because he's the best.
This makes, with the way they've built Arya up too much to make this feasible that, I mean, I guess, yes, Littlefinger is supposed to be the master manipulator, but... What we've seen Arya go through, it really is kind of a stretch to feel like she's being manipulated like this.
Yep, but she is. She follows Littlefinger, finds this little piece of parchment, and the reason I buy it, he is using truth at least, like, because she really, like, she was forced to write that, but it's still, I mean, I guess Arya explains it in the next episode where she says, like, I would have died before I betrayed my family, and you going to tell the little Mormon girl that you're just a girl. You would say that you were just a girl. She's younger than you are now. When you were then, you tell her you were scared, and then Sansa's like, you don't know what I've been through, and it's honestly. Jim, I didn't know we were playing clips from the show.
Yeah,
we have that technology.
Honestly, I think we could be in episode 6 right now. To me, I feel like that stuff, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of little nitpicks and complaints with the Beyond the Wall stuff. The Sansa and Arya stuff kills all momentum and really sinks down the episode to me, more so than anything else going on.
That's interesting because I didn't feel like that at all. Probably because... Like I didn't, it doesn't feel super satisfying that Littlefinger is manipulating all of it, but because he's using truth, because he's using actual conflicts between these characters, I was like not necessarily super on board, but with me not understanding the reason for going beyond the wall, in comparison, I didn't really mind the tense scenes between Arya and Sansa, where they kind of find out more about who each other are and where they've been. That felt kind of like... It felt kind of grounded in a way because they weren't like attacked by wildlings or zombies or dragons or anything, and they were in character. They weren't just quipping back and forth and doing these television-like lines. What was the reason you found that it was?
To be fair for this show, it's not outrageous to be attacked by zombies and White Walkers. Like, it's been a part of the show for quite a long time. So I get what you're saying. Like, this is still more grounded because it's personal drama, but it's not out of realm for this show to have stuff. I guess I was more interested in what was going on there, even if it was outrageous, and it felt like a weird, jarring cut to go to sisters, arguing.
I guess that makes sense, but a lot of the North of the Wall stuff was kind of, okay, now these two characters talk, and now these two characters talk.
Very true.
And now these two, and I was kind of losing track. Like, haven't everyone already had a conversation with everyone yet?
Yeah, I guess what I mean is more so when things started going down, because when shit started going down, it would then cut to, like sneaking around and looking in a dresser or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we're in episode 6, Beyond the Wall, as we were saying. Talking about it overall, the main plot, of course, is the stuff beyond the wall. But if we want to do the other stuff first, that kind of covers Arya and Sansa. Is there anything else going on in this episode? South? I don't think so. Right?
No, I think
that's blow it out of my mind.
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess there's some interesting stuff happening because Cersei sends an invitation to Sansa, and like she's like, I'm too smart for that bitch. I ain't ever going back down there. But she does make the choice to send Brienne down there, and then she's like, Brienne's like, what do you mean? I should be here? And then where the audience are like, yeah, she should be here. But I guess Littlefinger puts it in her head that she needs to go away, and it works because he's Littlefinger and he's master manipulator.
Well, first off, I don't think the invitation was from Cersei. I think it was from, like, Jon Snow or Daenerys or something, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I know it was to go to King's Landing, but it's to go to this whole...
the meeting they want to do, yeah.
The Council of Elrond, like, meeting they're going to have. So, since Jon and that camp are the ones, like, arranging it, I would assume, because... Cersei wouldn't send a letter like that unless it was like, P.S. I'm gonna murder you.
Well, I mean, you're probably right. I guess I wasn't quite clear on it because it felt like those other characters were doing things. Yeah. And I know they wanted to have a meeting with Cersei, like obviously to show her the White Walker, but I didn't, or the zombie, whatever. But it wouldn't make sense to me that Jon would want Sansa to go to King's Landing. Because why would he need her there as well? It would just put her in danger, like, because especially Jon Snow, he's always like the one, I'll do it, I'll protect everyone, I'll handle everything. So it just doesn't ring as true to me that he would put her in danger. I would almost feel, even though I guess it isn't really clear, I'd almost feel like Cersei would do it as a way to have more collateral, I suppose, because obviously she's planning some shit to go down.
That's completely true, because now that you say it, why the hell would Jon Snow say, hey, my representative that I left in the north, you should come here and represent the north. He's the fucking king. He should do it. But then he's further north than any of them. He's just bouncing back and forth so fast, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't take any time to go to King's Landing or anywhere, so it's fine. But yeah, I see what you mean. I guess Littlefinger could have written it.
Yeah, Littlefinger or... I mean, I guess maybe Tyrion, because I guess Tyrion and Dany are the one talking about it. But
maybe Tyrion's like, Jon's dead, so he's the only one seeing through this whole idiotic plan. We need someone from the north. So I wonder, like, in the previous scene, Littlefinger is saying something like, hey, if one of your sisters were to try to hurt the other one, then, Brienne would have to stop it. And that makes it seem like... she's going to use Brienne to protect herself.
That's what I thought.
I think that's what they want you to think, but then is it a twist then that she sends Brienne away because she's going to hurt Arya? Or what's the thing there? She doesn't actually have a lot of people around her who would go against Arya, even if she's like the Queen in the North or whatever. She's a Stark, so... I
mean, this would make no sense, but it's what I'm hoping for. And someone else had commented this on one of my Facebook posts about Game of Thrones, is I secretly just hope this is all part of the plan and they're tricking Littlefinger, but I doubt that's what's happening.
Yeah, how would that add up, really?
No, it wouldn't. It really wouldn't. But I just secretly would hope, because I don't know. I don't really like this. Even though it is smart because it is played off real stuff, I don't know. I'm not digging this Arya versus Sansa stuff. Maybe it's because I love them both so much.
I guess I kind of... yeah, that makes sense. I kind of liked it, I think. I don't know. I was kind of confused by this whole episode because it's like a 1 hour, 15 minutes or something like that, 10 minutes of like action and then walking in the snow and all of that.
Don't get me wrong. I like the drama between the two, but I don't like that it's looking like they're going to kill each other over it. That's the only thing I'm like, come on. I like that there's, yes, some drama and tension, but the way they keep hinting that, like, who's going to kill who, that to me is what doesn't ring true.
That makes sense. I think the only reason I buy that is that Arya is such a fucking weirdo that she would pick up a knife even with her sister and like, what do you think about this? But she does it all calm and creepy. And then, I mean, yes, if she had stabbed Sansa or vice versa, I wouldn't have liked those scenes, but instead she hands over the knife. I guess we just have to wait and see. I assume that it doesn't end in... just because of the feel of the show, it's not going to end in a tragedy of them killing each other. It's going to end in Littlefinger somehow getting his head on the chopping block. That's what it seems like anyway.
Sure, but then in a weird... I mean, I guess I'd have to see how it plays out, but then in a weird way, that's why it just feels like, what are we doing? Because it's like they're setting up two things where it's like we know Arya is cold-blooded and can maybe, you know, she could kill somebody with, you know, the drop of a dime or what have you. So then for Sansa's side is that it's just that she's so weirded out by Arya that she might hurt her in her own defense because she's worried about how unpredictable she is. So I don't know, but that's why it's like you have a scene where she has a knife and she's like, ooh, what about this knife? I could do things and I could do this and I could cut you and then here you go and then walk away. Like, so is she's purposely toying with her? But why?
Yeah.
Like, why is she bringing it to that level? Why is she purposely toying with her to be like, I could kill you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess they're both weirdos acting out their childhood trauma, more or less.
I mean, they're obviously fucked up kids.
Yeah. Just a bunch of fucked up kids.
I mean, but to your point, to your credit, like, the scenes are well done. Like, it was a well done scene. And, you know, the last time someone asked me questions about the Game of Faces, they ended up, like, I do like that. It just, I don't know. It feels a little, I mean, I guess a lot of things are, you know, much more fast paced. So maybe that's just another thing that they kind of have to amp up a bit because we're coming in episode 7 and episode 7's the finale. And then we're going to pay this stuff off. So,
yeah. I'll have to defer judgment until we see the rest, because you could be right. I just didn't get a negative feeling off these scenes in particular, but it could go south quick.
And, I mean, back to the beginning, yes, like going north, not south, if we go north quick. It is very much kind of a corny boys club at the beginning, where it's like, well, Gendry, what? You were tied to a bed? Oh, sounds good to me. And Tormund and the Hound being like, Brienne of Tarth, I want to have babies with her. Yeah, she's the hot-ass bitch. It's like,
it kind of feels like they're going on, like, Jon's bachelor party.
Yeah.
You always go north of the wall. It's a gamble, like going to Vegas.
I mean, Jon and Jorah have a nice back and forth where they're talking about his dad and the sword and all that. I did like that. But you're right. It's just kind of different. It keeps cutting back, and it's different. Here's two dudes talking, and here's two dudes talking, and here's Beric and Jon talking a little bit.
Yeah, I liked a lot of it. I liked the strategy for keeping warm, fucking, which is what I have to assume they did on that island to keep warm, because the math doesn't add up otherwise on how they survived that long. Someone should have had to go with Thoros, even if he couldn't move. That probably would have saved his life. Because, yeah, there's a lot of those scenes, and they kind of blur together. I think you mentioned the highlight, which is seeing Jorah and Jon talk about the sword. I kind of suspected that Jorah would say, you keep it, and then, you know, it goes to the Mormont family. But instead he's like, you and your children. I don't know. I guess it works either way.
One quick thing, Sansa did say that she hasn't heard from Jon in weeks. So for all this question about time passing and what have you, it has been at least weeks, people, so don't get too nitpicky.
Sure. Also, it seems like Jon wouldn't tell Sansa that he's going north of the wall, so even worse kingmanship in my book to like he was abandoning them to go south to see a queen, and that was dangerous enough. But then he's saying, no, I'm going to go north. I'm just going to go with these 10 dudes I know. Don't worry. They're all cool. I know all their names except like 2 guys, but they seem cool. I'm sure I'll get to know those 2 guys that are in here walking who don't have character names. They're probably going to live super long. Yeah, he hasn't told her. They haven't kept in touch. But yeah, they all have conversations up there until dead bear arrives. It's an awesome bear.
Well, and before that, though, we do see a little Tyrion and Daenerys having some girl talk a little bit, where Tyrion's like, you know, hey, all these guys you mentioned, they all love you. And then she's like, Jon Snow doesn't love me. And he's like, And then she has that line,
Girl.
He's too little. He's too little for me. Is it because she's used to like Dothraki, like beasts? Like, I don't what.
She should have said he's too short for me.
Yeah.
That would have made more sense, I think. But Maybe he's not. I don't know how short they are in real life, but
And-
yeah, that's the joke. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and then Tyrion starts pushing, like they start really pushing the idea of who's gonna be who's the successor if something
Right.
happens to her, which is interesting because I don't really remember being brought up before, and it starts to like alarm bells start going off, like this is important. Why are they talking about this?
Yeah.
And it like brings it up a few times, and then because it starts out with Daenerys saying how she loves that Tyrion's not a hero because he's not going to go off and die. And he's loyal and he's great, but then when he starts talking about the successor, she's like, "Maybe you want to kill me? Like, what do you want to know? Is going to be successor? You want me to die or something? What's going on here?" Because he starts bringing up the meeting with Cersei.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of legitimate because of what she was saying the other episodes. Maybe you're holding back a bit because it's your family. And now it's like, hey, what if you were to die? Like, I see his point of view, but I also see her point of view of like, can we have a positive attitude here or what? But on the other hand, if she were to die, the people she's gathered around her, it's basically like a cult of personality where they all like worship Daenerys. So if she dies and everyone starts fighting, if she just points to someone and says, this person shall be my successor, that would make it so that if she died, they can still continue the movement. Right now, if she dies north of the wall, if she falls in that water and doesn't get fished out by her uncle, then there's there's no war anymore.
You don't think the Unsullied and the Dothraki have a bond greater than Daenerys? Like if Daenerys died, they're not going to be friends anymore?
Maybe if they went north of the wall, they would bond and have some buddy moments. Right now, I don't really see it.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you said, so then back north of the wall, a zombie bear attacks and eats some red shirts and then attacks Thoros. Thoros is his name? Yeah, attacks him, eats him up. He's like, what, a priest of the Lord of the Light, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. And so, yeah, so shit's going down. They use a flaming sword to, cauterize the wound. He's back up on his feet, and he looks like death, and he's not long for this world.
Yeah, I at the time when I was watching, I was kind of upset that he didn't die because I've been doing like... I mean, he didn't die immediately because I've been doing a bit of research on like how to write a good fight scene and stuff like that and trying to piece it together. And basically, it feels even more like the stakes aren't high because of this, because there's this whole scene that's supposed to, I think, show how dangerous the North is and how everything can go to hell. But because he doesn't die and none of the characters are significantly injured, it didn't feel like we were seeing the danger of the North. It felt like we were getting a reinforcement of showing how invincible these characters are with unbeatable plot armor status boosted all the way up. Granted, he did then die, so that certainly softens my opinion on that. But at the moment when I was watching it was kind of like, well, that bear was cool. What did it actually progress as far as the plot? I don't think it changed anything.
All it did was remind us that animals can be.
That's true.
Wights. Are they wights? The zombies?
Yeah.
It was just kind of a reminder. But you're completely right. But yeah, it really was just like a quick refresher of like, look at this, an animal with blue eyes. Isn't that a little weird? Don't think that's out of question here. And then they like a lot of things with this, and I get like a lot of things come out of convenience. Like it's just convenient. They happen to find a small little, I guess. One of the White Walkers was like, go check up out there and see what's going on. I mean, I guess the big argument for how everything goes down is that potentially this was all part of the plan as far as on the Night King's part.
Yeah.
It's the only way you can really fully explain it because, yeah, they find a small little cavalry of wights and their White Walker, and it's very convenient that when Jon kills the White Walker, like all but one of the wights, crumbles. So that works out. They got their one that they were looking for. But then, of course, makes a cry for help, and like the whole army's coming down on them. Mm-hmm. And
he says to Gendry, go send a raven to Daenerys, tell her what's happened. And my question is, what do you mean? What's happened? You are surrounded by zombies, as you knew you would be, because you've had visions, you've been there, you've seen the Night King, and what does it say in that raven? It says, we went and got a wight, then we heard some noises, we were probably all gonna die. And I mean, that's correct. I mean, what he probably writes is, please come and help. What he should have written is, why didn't you come in the first place? If you're even on the fence about if this is believable or not, why don't you take a dragon, at least like north to Eastwatch, just to have and kind of look over the edge there? Because they seem to be like 2 hours walk into the north. They haven't made camp or anything, so they're right there at the border. There could be a dragon right outside the doors, and indeed later they do fly back and forth, but I really did feel like when he was saying, go run and do that, I felt in my heart, and it doesn't really matter the math and all that stuff, but in my heart I felt, that's so stupid. If like the dragon cavalry comes in and saves the day, it makes this plan even more stupid than it initially was, because they have to send a raven across all of Westeros. And I know a raven flies faster than, a caravan trail or whatever, but they have to send it all the way, and then she has to fly all the way, and nothing went wrong with the plan. The plan went exactly as expected. It even went better for them than they could have imagined, because as you said, those wights were off to the side. So, I don't know, Jim. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, and you also missed, he also says, you're the fastest. And
yeah.
I was thinking, how did he know? How does he know he's the fastest? And actually, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I guess he's like the youngest, the only one who hasn't died and also is young, maybe. But yeah, who knows?
And I guess the other, Jonathan in the chat, why didn't everyone run back with Gendry? And I guess that's the other reason why Thoros wasn't killed. Because there's this like empty, like we can't run with him, but it's, at that point, just you got to leave that guy. You got to leave him behind and let's all run.
They got to carry a wight. They don't have time
that's
for
true.
Thoros.
Yeah, they're also carrying the wight as well.
But at the same time, what direction is Gendry running, or Gendry? Because they run one way. I assume he runs the other, but then the other direction is where the dead come from. But he's fine. They leave him alone. Yeah, it's all part of the plan.
There's a lot of logic. There's a lot of logic leaps here. And especially,
I was going to say, I beg to differ. When you said there's a lot of logic.
Oh, no, yeah. There's a lot of logic leaps here, because especially setting up, like, it's a fun idea to have them on this, rock island surrounded by a frozen lake. It's just how you get there. It's pretty clumsy, and the fact that they just like sit and wait, like, yeah. I mean, it's not the best. I still think it's thrilling, and it's fun, but yeah, you're taking leaps to get there, and yeah, it builds, and we got the Hound throwing rocks, and then he gives away that the ice has frozen back over. So it does show, I mean, they've been there for a bit, but then it's also so cold there that maybe it's not that long of a time for it to freeze back over.
Yeah, I did read someone's maths on it that they posted online saying that potentially it could have happened in 4 days getting the help. So I guess if they were on that island for 4 days, like, I guess it could add up. But it doesn't feel like it does because of the whole setup, because of the whole reason the plan was stupid in the first place, and no one ever should have said, let's do this plan this way, because there's supposedly smart characters involved, like Tyrion, like, I mean, I was going to say Jon Snow, but his plans don't usually work. But, this is a very Jon Snow plan, actually. The more I think about it, let's just go and do it. So, yeah, I guess it adds up that it could have happened, but it doesn't feel like it makes sense.
Yeah. And then, like you said, we do get the dragons come in for the big save. I mean, I still think it's impressive. It's fun to finally see, we got to see a dragon in battle. Now we get to see a dragon in battle against the wights. But we do get, what I do like is that they set up that, what do they call that dumb weapon that they had, to shoot the arrows at the at the dragons.
Scorpion, was it called that?
Yeah, it's something like that. I do like that now. It feels that was just kind of a, like a red herring, like, oh, we're gonna see a dragon get killed.
Yeah.
But then we see like a similar, weapon, but just in the magical hands of a White Walker, as he throws the ice dagger through a dragon. And like I said, I've been preparing myself to see one of these fucking dragons die, and it didn't let me down. I was very sad. I was very bummed out.
Yes. Yeah, Jonathan did ask if he was heartless for not being sad when a dragon died, and I told him yes, you are.
I agree.
It's the worst death since Ned Stark.
I agree. And
even though it was a side dragon that we barely remember the name of, because Drogon is the only one that's been center stage ever.
And it's pretty convenient too, because the Night King is standing right in front of Drogon as everyone's getting on it. And instead of just like throwing into that, he throws it into the other one, which it's weird because you're just making excuses, but you have to be like, no, this is all part of the plan. Like, he's letting them go.
Yeah, but I mean, I did read one explanation, but I mean, when you have to jump through all sorts of hoops to explain something, it doesn't really like make it make sense. The one I heard was that it wasn't really like the spear that killed him, more hitting like maybe right when he was about to use his fire, it was almost like he was exploding from the inside or something like that.
I mean, it did look like that, but I don't think that's the implication. I think the implication is that he throws that spear into a dragon, you're done.
Yeah, moreover, why wasn't Drogon fire-breathing at the Night King? I mean, I've heard people say, hey, he's impervious to fire, and I'm like, yeah, but it's dragon fire. Like, it's like one step below wildfire. Like, give it a shot. In fact, Jon Snow could have said, instead of like slowly hack and slashing his way towards the Night King, he could have said, there, over there, do the fire thing, Dracarys, over there. And it certainly would have made more of an impact than just slowly walking towards him.
Yes, yeah. We do see Jon Snow being Jon Snow, just not getting on the dragon to get out of there. He's got to fight and try to go for the Hail Mary, but Night King's already got that Hail Mary taken care of. Am I wrong? Ooh.
Didn't catch that one, but okay. Yeah.
Because he threw the Hail Mary pass, my man killed that dragon.
I don't know what that means, Jim. Is that a football thing?
It's a football touchdown.
Is it an American football thing? Okay.
It is.
Cool. I guess it's a good thing that Jon didn't reach him, because if he had, the Night King has even better biceps than Gendry, because he threw it at that dragon and the dragon died. So I don't know how a sword fight with him would go. Probably bad.
So then they have to leave. They have to leave Jon Snow behind, and he's overtaken by wights, falls into the water, and they fly away. And Daenerys is very sad because she's in love with Jon Snow. There's nothing that could change that now. It's all solidified her love of Jon Snow. And but then of course, Jon Snow's not done. You ain't seen the last of Jon Snow. No. He climbs out of the water. And but I do like that there were still, it wasn't quite a Jaime and Bronn climbing out of the water, because he climbed out of the water and there still were wights around. So yeah. he was still like would have had to have fight again. But then Cold Hands, that's his name, right? Benjen?
Yeah, Benjen or Cold Hands. I don't know if they called him that in the actual show or not, but that's what he is in the books. That's what DB Weiss and whatever call him, Benioff. Yeah. He comes in, saves the day, and is like, get out of here. Leave me here. And they kind of do explain it away a little bit. They talk about it in the quick discussion on HBO. And they said that it was more, he saw this as his, like, he's been stuck in between life and death for so long, and this was his final thing, and now he can rest. Which really doesn't make sense, but whatever. Yeah, and also, hey, I don't have any more roles to fill here in this story, so I'm a character you can finally kill off, which would be more effective, I think, if we had seen him at all for the past, I guess it's just last year, or I lose count.
Well, he kind of just served, I think it was last year, beginning of last year, or maybe the end of the season before, and he served the same purpose, right? He just saved Bran.
Yeah, it was definitely last year because it was after Hodor passed away.
Oh, yes, yep.
So yeah, it was just bringing him down to the wall. And I mean, that was such a weird and great moment because like Cold Hands was in the books at a much earlier stage and everyone had sort of given up hope. And in the books as well, we don't know for sure or didn't know for sure that Benjen was Cold Hands. That's why they refer to him as that name, because they never revealed that they were the same person, even though it was implied in the books. So to see him in the show just bounce in like, "Hey, it's me," that was pretty cool back then. He, I mean, I guess I would have. I expected or assumed we would get a moment where one of the dragons, the other one, because one of the dragons kind of vanishes when they fly off. We don't really see the other one fly away, as far as I recall. So I felt like that dragon would just dive in and pick up Jon Snow because he's a Targaryen.
Yeah. So, but nope, the good old Cold Hands comes in, saves the day, and then Daenerys, like I said, she's in love with Jon Snow, so she's waiting at the wall, like hoping to see him stumble out of the woods. And he does on Cold Hands' horse. And now they get to, I don't know why she was on a boat, because she could have gotten on her dragon, right? But I guess it's because of Jon Snow. And like you said, we get this dramatic reveal now where she sees his wounds and his, him without his shirt. Hell yeah. And the sexual chemistry, my dude.
It is off the scales. Oh my gosh.
And kind of the other thing, too, with the whole bending the knee, it was clearly just delayed for this moment as well, because he finally decides he's going to bend the knee. He sees, since she saved his life, he sees what a leader she is. And that proves it. Like, hey, anyone that's going to save my life, they're a good king in my book, or queen. And then, she's like, I hope I deserve it. So, I mean, it was a nice scene. They're on the same page now, ready to fight, ready to do whatever. And then we come back for one last gasp as the wights have chains and they're pulling the dragon out of the water. And, hey, they got a dragon now. Ho, ho, ho.
This is just a slight caution to everyone out there. Be careful with your tweets, because I saw a tweet from one Jim Scampoli saying, people complain about the faceless men, or they don't complain about faceless men, but these chains are such a big deal. And granted, you didn't actually spoil anything, but all episode, 1 hour and 15 minutes, I was waiting for chains. I was like, are they going to tie up the wight when they catch it?
Oh, you hadn't seen it yet?
No, Arya? Does Arya have the
pass.
chains? Yes, it was a late pass. I mean, I saw, obviously a lot of people were on the leak this week, but I was just watching the last week's episode when the leak was coming out, and I am in this mindset where I want to be in the right mood to watch Game of Thrones. If I sit down and I'm kind of distracted or whatever, I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. It has to be just right. And then I light some candles, I try to get into it, and I really, because there's so few episodes. If it was like a 10 episode season, I would usually like, oh my god, show me immediately. And now I'm kind of like, I don't want it to be over. So yeah, I hadn't seen it yet. But the chains, yes, big chains. People care a lot about them. It doesn't matter.
People kept saying, where do they get the chains? And, like, who knows? Who gives a fuck? Who cares? Like, that's what that was my main point. Yeah, you have magic faces. You have magic chains. He's the Night King. We've seen him do crazy shit. He brings the dead back to life. Although if you bring up the point, he should have just made him float up on his own, like he brings up the dead, like without touching them or whatever. But maybe since it is a dragon, he does have to touch him. I don't know.
I think that adds up, and also I don't think like he doesn't make humans fly when he makes them undead. He just makes them stand up. So that dragon couldn't have like gotten out of there without. I think that
he could have gotten
extra.
Out of there. They could have even had a more dramatic thing if he just was raising his hands up and then the dragon's head shoots up out of the ice, and he's got the blue eyes, and it was like, "Roar!" And it's like, oh hell yeah, he's blowing ice.
Yeah, that could have been the case. I mean, my thinking was, hey, the fucking White Walkers have been up there in the north for literally thousands of years. I mean, I guess they were like napping. They were napping during most of that time, but clearly they're pretty intelligent. They have a shitload of minions who'll do whatever they tell them. So they can probably get some iron chains. Not to mention there was like all the stuff they still have, like under the ice, like far under the ice, is probably a lot of old shit from like the Age of Heroes, back when they, built the wall and all that. So there's a lot of crazy shit going on back then. I'm sure there's some chains lying around that they could have used.
Very true. Now, what does this mean for all the fans out there that are waiting for who are the 3 heads of the dragons? Does this kill the whole warging into, like, the 3 people warging into the dragons? So now is it just going to be Jon and Dany? But but not even Jon and Dany. It's just going to be Bran.
But I don't think the whole warging into dragons thing is going to be central in the TV show. This is where I feel like the books and the TV shows pretty different, and I'm fine with it. Like, I'm fine with the show going its own way, because it feels like that's fairly central in the books. There's a lot of stuff that's fairly central where they just skip or do their own thing. It doesn't matter if you can warg into a dragon here. What matters if it likes you and if it'll let you ride it. That's how you control it, because Daenerys controls it.
You don't think the books, the Night King will get a dragon?
No. Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, because there's a lot of stuff set up. I think the main reason, I mean, I assume next episode that dragon's bringing down the wall, or at least flying them over it. Is that what you think as well?
Potentially. I hadn't even thought about that, honestly.
That's what I assume, because we've been saying, like, the wall has to come down in the last episode. Now they have a dragon, ho, ho, ho. So that's probably where it's going to go. And in the books, there's all these mechanisms of, like, this horn you blow, and then the wall goes down. And that's been a thing for books and books. And that might be a red herring, too. But potentially there's no dragon in the Night King's hands, or maybe it happens under very different circumstances. Probably. I was just saying, I just figured,
if it does happen in the books, would it change the? I don't know what they name the theory, but I know that's been a constant discussion on who would be the third person to take a dragon. Maybe it is just the Night King. Maybe you'll have Jon and Daenerys warging into dragons, and you get the Night King warging into his dragon.
Could be. I mean, one of the big parts of that theory, some variations, was that Tyrion is also a secret Targaryen, and there's all this hashtag secret Targaryen. I mean, I still think Drogon is Daenerys's, for sure, and of course, the other dragon that's left goes to Ed Sheeran, because he's a hashtag secret Targaryen, and there's no other way for it to all make sense. It's very established. Hands of Gold, he's singing about. They think it's Jaime, but of course it's the golden hands of the Targaryen legacy that he has, and they can control dragons. So that's what's going to happen.
Nailed it. Jonathan in the chat, what do you think about the theory that the event was all part of the Night King's plan to get a dragon, that he has the same powers as Bran? I think it fixes some of the logic stuff. Like, we kind of mentioned that as we're talking about how this action plays out in the show, and how you could kind of nitpick some of the stuff. I guess it fixes that, but like you had said, you got to kind of jump through hoops to make it real. I guess they could be, but it's just you're trying to fill in gaps that maybe explain away some of the poor handling. I mean, in a show that handles action and conflict so well, it had a lot of great moments, but it had a lot of problems as well. And it kind of felt like they were like, well, in the episode before the finale, we always have a big battle, so we need to do something. So let's just do this.
Yeah. To answer Jonathan's question, I think that's extremely likely. Maybe, like, we don't know exactly how far Bran's powers go, but we know they're kind of similar to the Night King. The whole situation, I mean, yeah, he didn't. Granted, he does have a bit of a poker face, but I was gonna say he didn't really seem shocked that there were dragons. He was kind of like, okay, let's get on with it. That's also one of the one of the potential reasons why not shooting down Drogon, I guess. Someone said something like that, but I don't remember exactly. I think that's very likely, because there's no horn. So how are they getting past that wall?
Yeah, I agree. That was kind of one of the complaints, too, is that we didn't get reactions from some of these other characters to like seeing a dragon or seeing the wights and stuff, like having some of that stuff kind of confirmed, whether it be the Hound or Beric or any of those guys. Like you'd think it'd be like, wow, what the fuck? So it is real. It's true. The Jedi, the light, the darkness, all of it.
It all
it's
happened.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess we kind of covered most of these episodes. I want to say there's a lot of cool stuff happening, especially in episode 6 that we really didn't go into. We could gush over it a lot more. And I do want to make plain that it's some fantastic television making going on like the production level, on the way it looks. And I certainly, for a lot of the episode, when there was action going on, I was swept away. I wasn't caring about these things. It's only when it's over and you're kind of left there and thinking, did that all make sense? Did that add up? Do I feel completely satisfied by it? Or could they have tweaked it just a little bit as far as motivations, made it a bit more believable, and made it actually be super triumphant? Because there wasn't any, like, I don't know, there's been episodes in Game of Thrones that have had a budget that's like a tenth of this, and they've affected me more because of how they've chosen to develop the characters, because of the realism of the world and the choices they make. It all adds up, and here it doesn't feel the same way. That's a fucking awesome bear, though, so it goes both ways.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, it's still awesome when the dragons come in and they're blowing away wights and sinking them into the lake, or when they're on that rock and Jon tries to save that red shirt nobody, and he falls over the cliff and gets swallowed up. And you know, when Tormund was maybe getting pulled into the ice, I was like, no fucking way. But you know, they saved him. Well, I mean, I'm glad they saved him, but you know, you watching Game of Thrones, you get that moment of like, uh-oh, here it comes, here's the heartbreak. But you know, they saved him, so he lives another day to maybe get it on with Brienne of Tarth.
Finally, that's the cliffhanger. We're all waiting to see how that develops. Honestly, it's simple to like boil it down to this, but I would have been happier if like one more character died. It's kind of stupid to say it that way.
I agree.
But
it's dumb, but yeah.
Yeah. Because of the way they shot it, where they're all wearing like winter clothes, so when it's fast cuts, you can't even really see what's happening, but you just assume that when someone's in danger, it's not one of the main characters, it's one of those two other guys. Like, one scene ends with the Hound walking ahead of everyone else, and the next scene there's someone way ahead of everyone else, and it turns out to be one of the red shirts who gets killed by the bear. The Hound is just not there. He's off doing something else. If they just, I mean, like when he's getting pulled into the ice, after every time that happens and a main character doesn't die, like with Jaime, like a lot of times in this episode, the world feels less realistic and less dangerous, and that's kind of been the meat and potatoes of Game of Thrones, is having something that feels gritty and realistic. It's what makes it different from all other fantasy, and they still like have a grasp on that. It's not like it's gone away completely, but with episodes like this, they're gonna lose a lot of that tension. Yeah,
agreed. And like you were saying, because I know we're being fairly negative, it's still great TV. It's still epic, you know, epic battles, like really well done technical stuff. It's just because we're, you know, speeding along, and I gotta wonder I guess it's because of all the work and the extra budget on why the decision to make the shorter seasons, because it does feel like some of these things could have, you know, helped with a little bit more breathing room. And it's because I don't feel like it's like, I thought it's because, you know, hey, there's not much story left, so we need to do this. But with the way things are so compressed, it doesn't feel like that. It really comes, even though I know the show's one of the most expensive on TV. It's not like they're you know, pinching pennies, but maybe since they do have to up the production a lot more, and there's so much more to be done, that's why it has to be, you know, cut down into the 7 episodes rather than 10.
Yeah, I guess so, because I was also feeling like, I suppose they're doing this to make it, you know, to make it like climactic all the time, because it's all going to be bang, 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 bang. But a lot of the stuff has felt like it's really suffered from not having the usual breathing room around it, from like not getting those intimate, simple scenes that would usually like let us into the characters' minds, and instead we get like quick one-liners and jokes and winks at the audience that kind of pulls us more out of it than putting us into it. But yeah, with an episode like this, I can understand that this is like the budget of 3 episodes all in one. It seems like. But then we had the Battle of the Bastards last year, and I don't think they're like lowering the budget since last year, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all coming down to next week or this week or what have you, and it looks like, you know, with the jet setting around Westeros, it looks like everyone will be in King's Landing for this big meeting. So I feel like everything will go really well. You know, everyone will set aside their differences rather easily and, you know, fight a common enemy.
I mean, probably. No,
well, what's this? Well, actually, I haven't seen this as like I'm sure this is a theory. I just saw Max Landis talking about it. Is the reveal with the White Walkers is that they're kind of good and they have a, you know, plan that we're not privy to that makes them not quite evil as we expect?
I mean, we already know they were created as a weapon to fight humans, which makes it seem like their goal is to kill humans and turn them into themselves. But do you have any like info on what that potential plan could be?
I don't. It just feels like something people are saying because we don't know a lot about them, so you just feel like they're going to pull the rug out from under us somehow. But yeah, because I don't necessarily subscribe to it. I just wasn't sure if that was a larger theory even among book readers.
I'm not sure, because they've always been depicted as sort of a force of nature. And then now we've been seeing, through the show mainly, been seeing that they have more of a culture and more like their own thoughts and personalities and stuff. And that certainly leans a bit in that direction. So it's kind of hard to say, but it would be kind of weird if they showed up at the meeting like, well, I think we should do this, like, with all the others. And they're like, you're here too, shit, you were traveling way fast. The wall just went down, fuck.
I say we're robbing Westeros of its natural resources and killing the environment.
Well, yes. I mean, that seems they've been proposed as a, you know, metaphor for climate change or whatever. So in that way, if they, you know, kill all the human, they're not releasing that much carbon dioxide. Maybe the dragons are or something. So I don't know what's bad about humanity in this world. Maybe it's because of all the violence. They're going to say, we're going to end the violence by killing humanity because our enemy is violence, and therefore we end those who kill each other or something. Then it's like, oh, then we have to live in Daenerys' dream world where everyone's happy puppies and no one fights, and then the White Walkers join them.
Yeah. Well, Marco in the chat, if they keep pacing like seasons 1 through 4, then they'd have to make like 3 or 4 seasons. I don't think we're necessarily saying to keep that pacing, but it feels like you could have kept a similar pacing to this season, but still had it be 10 episodes. And I don't know, maybe there have been plenty of shows that we've watched and we're like, why is this 10 episodes? This should have been like 6 episodes. So maybe it wouldn't come off that way. But with the way people are complaining and nitpicking some of the stuff, I don't know. I feel like maybe there could have been, maybe not necessarily a full 10, but maybe like another 1 or 2 with some of these things. Like, I feel like especially this episode, and I think this has been a common criticism, if this was kind of played out over 2 episodes, it probably would have hit a little harder. Like, you can have a full episode and have it end with them stuck on that lake and then kind of pick up from there, I feel, but...
I mean, that's a good comment from him, because I really do now think we're pretty hard to please, Jim. Looking at the other shows where we said this should have been this many episodes and that many episodes. Because, I mean, remember the High Sparrow? Remember how fucking long that went on for?
Oh, no, I agree. But my argument with that is that it's weird that we wasted so much time on that, and then we're rushing through some of this stuff. And I would maybe second guess it if it wasn't just us saying it, but I feel like I guess normies are even saying it, like people that don't sit around and discuss a television show and like what it means and what they're going for. Like I feel like just people that, you know, hey, just sit and watch it. They're even like, wait a minute, how they already get there? Wait, what's going on? That's already happening. So I don't think it's too nitpicky to feel like some of this stuff could have had a little bit more breathing room. I mean, it is nice they're playing off some shorthand because we do know these characters, so we do get how they're reacting and what the situation is. But I feel like there's a happy medium there.
Yeah, I agree. I did have 2 leftover notes I just wanted to mention real quick because watching episode 5 with them planning and also connected to the whole execution of the Tarleys, I wrote down, why is Tyrion being so fucking squeamish? Because he even looks sad then when they have to kill those 2 guards when Gendry thumps him with that hammer. He's like, oh no, we had to kill 2 guards. He's like fucking killed people with
why
shields.
is he doing that?
He's been a battle commander, and now he's all like, I killed my dad, so now I'm so sad all the time. Like, come on, let the world harden you up instead of going all like emo like the Hound is nowadays. Just why? Are you only doing that because the show needs you to be someone who opposes what Daenerys is trying to do, or what?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it is just kind of for the plot, basically. I guess, but like you said, you can't explain it away because he had to kill his dad, and that's what changed him. But we haven't seen that enough to get that feeling organically.
I mean, it really seems like the past seasons don't, like, they bring it up, but they never make it matter that much. Like, for example, when Tyrion and Davos arrive at King's Landing, and he's like, oh, last time I was here, I killed my dad, and he's all sad. And then Davos like, yeah, hey, remember last time I was here? You killed my son. Let's never bring that up again. Like, that's, you know, we're all united under Daenerys' flag now, so I guess we get along now.
Yeah. They're only kind of mentioning it, so the audience isn't like, hey, wasn't the last time he there killed his dad?
Yeah. They're only mentioning it.
Kill his son?
So that we don't wait for a reveal of that, because otherwise we would have been like, it's got to be brought up that this was happening. Anyway, I also had just a quick prediction from Jonathan, who thought that when they have that meeting with Cersei, she will agree to fight the zombies with the condition that she should get Tyrion to punish him for killing their father, and then Dany will request to get Jaime because Jaime murdered his father. That's kind of interesting. I don't really think that's going to happen, but honestly, with the motivations and ways of thinking that the characters have now, that might add up.
Well, it has to come down to a trial-by combat with the Hound versus the Mountain. That's all. However they figure it out. That's what needs to be done. I remember going into this episode, someone was saying like, oh, the Hound's going to get turned, and then you'll have Zombie the Hound versus Zombie the Mountain. I would have paid to see that.
Hell yeah. That would be something. I don't know. Maybe that would happen as Jonathan described, but more of a hostage situation where, like, who's the person we can give who, like, you don't hurt them or we don't hurt them, and then Jaime and Tyrion seem like obvious choices for that because Cersei obviously only cares about Jaime, and I mean Daenerys would have to give over Jon Snow or something, but she can't do that, so who knows. Just a quick thought there. I think that about wraps it up as far as these 2 episodes. Next week we have the finale, where the wall will go down from a dragon, or fly over it, I guess. That's the only thing I can imagine. There's no way that doesn't happen as far as I'm concerned. Do you have any other predictions as far as the finale?
I would hope Littlefinger's going to get his, but I don't know. I feel like he's going to linger along for a little while. Yeah. Honestly, I don't really know what with the way things have been going. I don't know if things are gonna amp up even faster, or if they're gonna take this moment to slow things down a little bit and set up next year. So I'm very anxiously awaiting to see what goes down, though.
Yeah, I feel like it could be slower setup and then followed by the wall going down in like the last 15 minutes. Hopefully not the last 15 seconds. Hopefully like actually showing like an army of wights coming to Winterfell, and then Arya has to like help Sansa escape instead of them like all complaining about each other. They'll actually be on the same side. Littlefinger unfortunately gets turned and becomes like a counselor to the Night King, and he starts scheming with the Night King like.
Oh, you know what it'll be is like they'll finally be going after Littlefinger, like ready to take him out or something, and then it'll be like a crash. Like, what was that? And then Bran will like float in. He'll be like, it was the wall. And you hop on my back. We're getting out of here.
I'm the dragon now. Remember when they said I'd never walk but I'd fly? It wasn't a metaphor.
Marco in the chat, the Mountain and the Hound hug it out. I'd like to see that too.
Yeah. Nice, sweet conclusion. Yeah. Okay, so, hey, everyone. Do you know what you could do that would really help this show that you listen to? You could go to iTunes and leave us a review.
Yes, please.
You could actually do it. You don't even need to have a Mac. You don't need to have one of those expensive, ridiculous computers. You can just, like, go to iTunes. Maybe you have to install the program, but, I mean, come on. You've been listening to us for probably, like, a year. We've been doing this for a year. We'd really appreciate it if you took some time to leave a review. For real. It would help us a lot. Wouldn't take a lot of time.
Yes, please review and even just subscribe. Even if you don't use iTunes, just subscribe on there. But even if you don't do that, review. If you don't want to write a review, even if you just rate the show, I think that actually really helps.
Yeah, just a little click. Speaking of which, you can also give a little click on our YouTube. That is where we will be doing a lot more live streaming of our discussions, and that means that that's the first place where everything's going to go up, and then we're going to get everything up on the feed, the iTunes and podcast feed, as fast as possible. But if you want to join in the discussion, you can do so there, and we're going to try to give you better notice for when we figure out the technology, so we're going to let you know in advance so you can also show up and have a discussion with us, because this is your television podcast.
Yes, yeah, we'll get it down to a science so you'll know ahead of time. And yeah, and also you can find more from Jacob at awesomepedia.org, all kinds of good stuff, and you can find more from me at jimandthem.com. Thank you so much.
Later.